So I want to start this video by saying that I really respect Tim Miller and JVL. I listen to them because they usually wrestle honestly with hard moral questions. That's exactly why this particular conversation stuck with me. In this clip, they're talking about being disturbed by how comfortable Americans have become with violence against people they think deserve it.
But in the Minneapolis case, we have video. But they told the same story, basically, right? They said this domestic terrorist ran over, didn't try to run over, but really ran over a police officer. And I mean, I don't know. It isn't like police just started behaving badly once we had cell phone video.
Right.
That's not what happened, right? It isn't like all of a sudden we developed the technology to record police officers acting in the wild, and that's when they started behaving badly and lying.
Yeah.
You know, and I take a very like human nature view of this stuff, which is that you have terrible people everywhere. They're terrible doctors. They're terrible teachers. They're terrible priests. They're terrible journalists. There are journalists who like lie and make things up and who you cannot trust. The difference is that when it comes to law enforcement, we then have an apparatus which, instead of trying to root those people out and get rid of them, tries to protect them. And that's the real problem, right? It's like the Catholic Church priest abuse stuff, right? I'm not going to say it's not bad that you have priests who abuse people, but it's not unexpected because you have that in literally every walk of life. The scandal of it was that the Catholic Church like hid and then protected these guys. That's what police departments do.
Yeah.
And that's what DHS and the FBI are trying to do now.
So this is what I want to, before we get to the counterfactual, this is like, I want to pull a related thread about this, which is in your wheelhouse, which is the culture of life question. We all talked about culture of life back in the old conservative ink days. And so part of this is the cops, right? But as you mentioned, it's not just about the cops, right? Like there's the Kyle Rittenhouse, there's the stand your ground law. And Tucker this morning, you never have to hand it to Tucker, but he wrote a newsletter that's like kind of that ends up being kind of insane. But the point that he's making at the start, which is often true of like when you're a demagogue, you take something that's true and then you kind of turn it into something insane. And so the little kernel of truth that he started with was that like maybe a lot of people are okay with this killing because our country's too desensitized to violence, and like that we just have like a culture of violence in this country that we just accept. And then Tucker kind of used that to defend Putin weirdly, you know what I mean? It was Tucker, but like that kernel of truth. I read it and I was just like that it touched on something that like that is what's really hitting me and bugging me about this. You know, not to create false equivalence or lump any of these things together, but just like across the board, like we have these incidents over and over again. The ones that bug me the most is like whether it be the Luigi thing or the killing of Charlie Kirk or all of these state violence against you know the George Floyds and the Trayvon, like all this stuff, right? In every instance, like there's a shockingly big portion of people that are just kind of like had it coming.
Is it really that shocking in a country that used to put lynchings of black people on postcards and it was celebrated as a public event? Sometimes you'd have 20,000 people come out to watch someone get lynched. Is it really that shocking?
Had it coming.
And so long as it's there on the other side.
It's on the other side, right? And so then so like, I guess my point is, I was just Googling this before I got on. I'm like, in Britain, we're going to do this on a per capita basis, right? Because, you know, there's many fewer people in Britain. It's like per 10 million Brits, you know, the police violence is like 0.01 or something, you know, 0.09 or something. And in America, it's 33, you know, and it's like 40 times more in America than over there. Police killings of people. We just have come to accept it. Like I noticed Piers Morgan, who's, you know, been pretty Trumpy. He was out there like kept saying to all his conservative friends when this new video came out, and he's like, I thought you guys were going to tell me this was exculpatory. He's like, this is crazy because lives in Britain. And in Britain, the cops carry the fucking billy clubs. And it's like, you can't just go shooting some lady, you know, because, and so it's not that people don't have dark hearts in other places, but like there's something about our culture, right? Where like this is like, it is very ingrained.
I wonder what it is about our culture and the fact that it was built on a system that divided workers and laborers by their skin color and thus made it okay to do heinous things like rape, mutilate, and other heinous acts to people of color in the name of white supremacy and in the name of white political power. I think that is pretty ingrained in American culture.
In it. And it's like, it doesn't feel like there's anybody that's actually fighting against that. right? That everyone is, and on the right, in particular on the right, there's literally nobody. It's kind of the opposite actually on the right, where it's like, no, this is what we want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Matt Walsh tweeted basically like, I don't care whether she was trying to hit him.
Matt Walsh, who's an open white nationalist and has been open about it.
This Daily Wire guy. Whether or not she was trying is immaterial to me. Her actions meant she deserved to die. And like, I don't like, how do you, it's hard to have a liberal democracy in a culture where there's a big percentage of people that are like, hey, I'm okay with violence against my neighbors, whether it's state violence or whether it's vigilante violence or whatever. Like, I just don't value life at all. Like,
and for most of our history, we haven't been a liberal democracy. And to this day, people have been okay with vigilante violence if it's done by the police or just by random white mobs who attack people of color. This is actually not that new.
It's a culture of death, and that's what I want to come back onto. Culture of life is gone. We've replaced it to a culture of death.
Well, this is the same culture that thought that January 6th was okay. Right. I mean, it isn't just state violence. It's okay with violence against your enemies, and that is fascism.
They're not wrong to be disturbed. The normalization of political and state violence should alarm people. JVL makes an important point that abuses have always existed in professions, that bad actors aren't new. Tim also points to how fandom around violence and assassination talk is deeply unsettling. And near the end, Tim even hopes this could become a George Floyd moment of backlash.
We don't think about it as a political success anymore. But like the initial reaction to Black Lives Matter, the initial reaction to George Floyd, like, was a political success. And like part of the reason Trump lost was because there were a lot of people, some percentage of people, who were inclined to vote Republican but are not deeply political, that like saw that and were outraged, like, you know, or like, and we know that they exist in the real world, right? And I know there are a lot of, it's almost a cliche, right? Like the types of people they are. They're like old suburban white people mostly, but like not, there are others, you know, who are like, man, it was a wake up call, right? And they're just like, things have gotten too far. Like, I don't want to live in a society like this. That's really my only hope for this, is that I think that there will, obviously this will harden, I think, Trump's support. Like, he'd rather be talking about violence in the streets and ICE and disobeying police than the economy crashing or tariffs or Epstein, right? Like this is a better issue set for him, no doubt. But on the other hand, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see next week. I also wonder if the same category of people that have already been turning off for him are just kind of like, I don't, this guy is such a jackalope, such a jackass. Like, people are instinctively pro cop. A lot of people like neighborhood cop. But like some guy that's a fucking fed that just got hired, that's wearing a mask, that's like calling her a bitch after he kills her. I don't know, man. Do people really like? There's some people who want that, obviously. What?
Not highly professionalized.
Not highly professionalized.
Right.
I don't know. I think it could hurt them. I think there could be a backlash again.
If you're a public school librarian called somebody a fucking bitch, they'd lose their job.
For sure.
Even if they didn't murder someone.
But here's where their analysis felt incomplete to me. Not wrong, but just incomplete. What was never named is racialized violence, past or present. And without that history, violence looks like a cultural mystery instead of a political pattern. For a lot of Americans, especially Black, Brown, and immigrant communities, state violence was never shocking, it was familiar. This matters because the case they're discussing, the Renee Good shooting, immediately triggered the "she had it coming" narratives. Those narratives didn't come from nowhere. They echo a long tradition of justifying violence when the victim is already framed as a threat. When influential figures openly say they don't care whether she was justified in being killed, that language overlaps with white nationalist logic, whether people want to admit it or not. You don't have to call everyone a white nationalist to acknowledge that this logic undergirds American politics. So when we ask why Americans are desensitized to violence, the answer isn't just polarization or internet culture. It's that the country has always been trained to accept violence selectively. George Floyd became a rupture because race couldn't be avoided. If this doesn't produce the same reckoning, that doesn't mean Americans are worse people now. It may mean we've gotten better at compartmentalizing whose suffering counts. When JVL points out that city cops don't wear masks, that's actually revealing. Anonymous mass state violence has historically shown up most against marginalized groups. That's not a deviation, that is a return. Tim and JVL are asking the right moral question. The answer just gets clearer when we name race, power, and history out loud. Outrage still exists in America, it's just not evenly distributed. Desensitization is often what moral exclusion looks like. This isn't new violence, it's old logic wearing new clothes.